Yo, what's going on, peeps? It's the Political Free Agents, and we are back for our weekly episode here on this Sunday. And I mean, I like to make the joke. There's not that much to talk about this week, right? There's only a few things that are really going on, right? Uh, it's been one of those weeks, and I'm not getting my sound here, so apologies if things don't sound exactly right. I'm not getting my sound back in my ears, so we'll figure it out, or we won't, and I'll just continue to roll, knowing that the bars are bouncing and things look good. So we'll see how it goes from here. So we have a lot of news to kind of get through today. We'll try to get through all of it. Obviously, the big news is Trump was acquitted from the trial where they were basically. Oh, I just realized I didn't change the episode information. I hate to do this live, but bear with me, everybody. All right. So when I go live, I have to actually update the information with Caster, who is who we use to multi-stream across the multiple platforms. And I forgot to update it, so it's still talking about our last episode with Hannah Cox. Which I highly suggest everybody take a look at that episode. It was awesome. Hannah was amazing. I thought it was a great interview. I'm a little bit biased, just a little bit, but I thought it was a great interview. Um, so we'll we'll get started here, and boom. All right, Twitter and Facebook are both updated. Looks like things are working as expected. All right, boom, boom, boom. Good to go. Bob's your uncle. That's what happens whenever you don't run a test run before you get started. All right, news. So, first off, want to start out with a quick shout out because this is awesome. I don't know how better to express how excited I am about this. I can't even like tell you for real. Like I love art. If you haven't seen like this uh, painting in the back, I have actually three or four different paintings from Duga. As you can see, that's his name down here on the bottom. Uh, and I just absolutely love the way he uses his colors. I have more that I'm putting up. I don't have enough to really put on the wall back here, but I'm about to redo the way this wall looks. But I have a little cousin, and my little cousin has this amazing ability to put together her thoughts on canvas. So they were, she was actually willing to create a painting for myself and my wife. And actually, you know what? I'll show my wife's first. My wife loves sunsets. This is the painting of the sunset that she did. Absolutely freaking amazing. I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, Absolutely awesome. I'm a big fan of artists on Twitter and whatnot. Uh, and so whenever, they offer to make a painting for us, I was super excited. So then here's the one they did for me. If you recall from the early days of PFA, I used to have a really big zebra. Actually, it's on the other side of my computer here. I can see it over my monitor here. But check this out. What? This is so dope. Man, being able to do this as a teenager, being able to put together this kind of artwork is just astounding to me. Like it's absolutely astounding. Um, it's a skill that for me is just like when I think of like of my skills of being able to code and things like that. Yeah, that works well until the apocalypse comes. So bear with me here. Complete sidebar. when I think about things like the apocalypse, like what happens if we do end up getting to an apocalypse? What would I do, right? Now I have other skills outside of computers, but still, like my skills are based on electricity. If the electricity goes, my main skill, then my main skill's out. What what am I going to do? You know, what am I going to do? Cut hair? Well, then I need electricity for that. So when I look at artists and stuff, it's like a timeless skill. It's timeless. Like you can do this no matter what. People are making art out of rubber tires. I saw something earlier of a cat in Africa that's making like full blown sculptures out of rubber tires. What? Like anyway, let's just say I'm huge, absolutely huge on um, on artists and their ability to create, different things. Like it's just amazing. So just want to thank my little cuz. Don't want to put names out because she's a teenager, but I want to thank her for her work because it's absolutely phenomenal. And I can't wait. I'm actually going to get some frames. I'm about to put those up, so they will be uh, showcased here. So today, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, y'all. I meant to actually put up a some hearts or something and completely forgot. Got sidetracked trying to get all this going and get my articles and everything together. Got completely sidetracked with that, but yeah, I hope you guys have a happy Valentine's Day, and I hope you stay safe because um, or if you're here in Texas, it's really bad out here. Um, the weather has dropped. Well, let me see. It's really bad for us. It's 35 degrees. All right, so I'm up here looking at the temperature real quick. It's 35 degrees, and for us, it's absolutely bananas. Right? We don't do this. This isn't what we do. We don't do cold weather here in Texas. Um, but it's starting to ice on the roads, things like that. So it's getting really bad for us um, in that way. So just be careful out there, you Texans who are in the midst of all of this bad weather. All right, so we have some news I want to touch on in the crypto space first. Now, in the crypto space, there's a lot happening. And I want to say before I jump into this news about Bitcoin, I just want to say that I want to make sure that everybody is keeping keeping their exit strategy in mind. Uh, you don't want to be caught like I was in 2017, just waiting for the moonshot, right? And that moonshot may come. It might. Like it may pop off. I don't know. We'll see. Uh, but it may not. And the reason why you don't want to get caught, you want to have your exit strategy, is because whenever this happens, whenever things do finally kick off, you want to make sure that you're ready to take your profits, right? So if you bought in at Bitcoin at, let's say, 40,000, if it hit 80,000, you've doubled your money, right? So take your profits of the original 10,000 and now you're playing with house money, right? That's the general rule that I kind of give people for, you know, just advice to kind of help them when it comes time to protecting your money. Of course, you don't put any money in that you can't lose, things like that, right? But things are starting to move. They're starting to shift, and they're shifting in a way that is creating a scenario where Bitcoin could potentially be used in more than just a HODL scenario, right? Where HODL means hold on for dear life or whatever they coined it. But it basically started out as just hold, but somebody spelled it wrong. So outside of the HODL scenario, the utility of Bitcoin would create more liquidity of more people buying in, more people transacting, it moving hands more, bigger whales buying it, right? So Elon Musk just bought 1.6 billion in Bitcoin in January. It just became news in February. The end of last year, Michael Saylor, they ended up investing like 1.3 billion or something. There's rumors of other companies investing multiple billions of dollars, and it's cool. Definitely looking forward to that. And the problem that I've seen, that I've stated multiple times in private conversations and things, is that Bitcoin has to find a way to deal with the speed. The speed is one of the big issues, and the fees. Whenever you're moving Bitcoin, it costs. And if it's going to, like, for microtransactions, right? Think of, the case of buying gum with Bitcoin. If you buy gum with Bitcoin, you may end up spending more in fees than the gum costs, right? And that gets worse as the price goes up. So that makes it completely unusable for microtransactions. Then the speed, right? When it first started out, 10 minutes per block. I mean, well, let's clarify. In terms of, like, if you're sending a wire, right? If you've ever had to send an international wire, you schedule that. It could be hours for the validation and all this stuff to work. It could take a few days, depending on how big the transaction is. It could take even longer with just the amount of controls that are in place to protect that amount of money moving. And then the fees are ridiculous on those wires as well. Bitcoin is an improvement on that, right? When we're looking at 10 minutes, a new block is printed. Uh, that means that you create a transaction now. In about 10 minutes, your transaction will be uh, confirmed on the block, right? All right, so that 10 minutes, cool. But then now that's in today's time, that's slow, right? There are other products, or excuse me, other cryptocurrency platforms and things that are considerably faster than that, can do more transactions per minute than Bitcoin can. So those are the two things that I think Bitcoin has to resolve to get right. So there's some news that came out from Jack at Twitter. And Jack actually tweeted, and let me see if I can get this to show right. Come on, let me zoom out a little bit. Come on, Ecamm, work with me. All right, so there we go. There we go. All right, so Jack, this is Jack from Twitter, basically the CEO of Twitter. And he said he and Jay-Z, he said Jay-Z and I are giving 500 BTC to a new endowment named B Trust to fund Bitcoin development, initially focused on teams in Africa and India. It'll be set up as a blind, irrevocable trust, taking zero direction from us. We need 3 board members to start. All right. So, and this link, it just sends to a Google form where they can actually, you know, figure out, like, you can put your name in to be one of the board members, right? So the great thing about that is, if I understand this correct, now mind you, this is just one tweet, right? If I understand this correct, to fund Bitcoin development, and let's actually do the math, 500 BTC times, let me see what the current price is. Let's just say 48,815. That's 24 million. Okay, so in order to, for $24 million, that's 500 BTC right now. So in that sense, funding BTC to that tune, or funding this this trust, that can potentially solve the speed and the fees issues. And if those things are solved, all of these altcoins could go bye bye, Because if Bitcoin becomes as fast as, let's say ADA, or any of these others that have come out that have very fast transaction times, becomes fast as those, and fees as low as ADA, or some of these Ethereum tokens have very low fees, but Ethereum itself has very high fees in comparison. Or what's the other one? Thinking Pocket. Anyway, I can't think of the name of it. But if it has some of those low fees, XRP has low fees as well, and high speed, even though that's going through the SEC stuff. Point being, if they can resolve that, we might have some traction. So that's great news. Then we had come out, the city of Miami is about to make some changes.
I want to thank the City of Miami Commissioners for supporting my resolution, which directs the city manager, after analysis, to procure a vendor to be able to offer our employees to get a percentage of their salary in Bitcoin, allows our residents to pay for fees in Bitcoin, and also would allow the city manager to cooperate with Miami-Dade County to allow for taxes to be paid in Bitcoin. It also requests of the state legislature that the City of Miami supports efforts to make Bitcoin an acceptable currency for us to potentially invest in the future. It's wonderful to be a very crypto forward city in the city of Miami, and I want to thank my commission colleagues for allowing that to happen.
That's big news, right? Like, just consider the fact that this is a city who is now about to accept Bitcoin as an official currency, quote unquote. Now, the flip of this. So I was talking to Chris. This one is Chris here. I realize Mike is now cut off because we have the frame here, but I was talking to Chris and I said this is a very smart move, and simple reason. Let's just do basic math. If somebody has a fee, and what do we say? The price was at 48,000 right now. So at 48,000, if you had a fee of, let's say, $100, right, and you had to pay that particular fee, right? So that $100 is going to be 0.002 Bitcoin. Okay. If Bitcoin goes up to 80,000, that $100 is now worth $166, right? And so on and so forth, right? Point being, if they keep that, if Miami keeps that Bitcoin and does not just immediately cash it out, the potential here is that they could increase their money just by doing nothing. Just take in all of that money and just hold it, or take in all that Bitcoin and just hold it. That's potentially massive gains, right? Now, this will create more liquidity for people, but will people really want to get rid of Bitcoin? Right? Like, we're in this phase where it's like, hold. Like, who is going to take their cash, their $100 in cash, and convert it to Bitcoin just to pay a fine? On the flip, who has $100 in Bitcoin that is going to give that up? If they have $100 in Bitcoin, they likely understand that the price could go up. So if the price goes up, they're going to be looking at that $100 fine, and they're going to be like, man, I gave up $100. That could be worth $800 right now, or whatever. If what they say Bitcoin will do this year, which is potentially get up to 200 something thousand or more per coin, if that happens, people are gonna be livid, right? So back to the first point, they have to fix speed and fees. They have to fix it before this becomes a viable thing. But while right now we're moving, while I appreciate what the city of Miami is trying to do here, somebody had to take the reins and be first. I love that. I'm not just like jumping for joy, like, yay, now we're official. Nah, we've seen it before. Microsoft, Amazon, I think it was Amazon. But Microsoft used to take Bitcoin. There's been numerous companies throughout the years that have accepted Bitcoin as payment, but due to price fluctuations, they've removed it, right? So the flip of Miami is, what if they take $100 in Bitcoin at the price of 48,000, and then Bitcoin drops down to 20,000? Well, now their Bitcoin is now worth less than the fee that somebody paid, right? Those issues will present some potential problems for for the city of Miami, but that's the nature of where we are right now in crypto. So we'll see as this continues. I'm very interested to see how this kind of plays out. All right, pardon me there. All right, we're going to touch on a couple things before we dig into the main topic here. All right, so now my zoom is off a little bit. There we go. All right. All right, so the WHO scientists traced 13 COVID-19 strains to Wuhan from late 2019. There were 13 different strains of the coronavirus in Wuhan, China in December 2019. This is from WHO scientist Peter Ben Imbarak, who told CNN in an exclusive interview. This is why it matters. Data gathered during the WHO scientists' first trip to investigate the origins of COVID-19 could point to an outbreak that was more widespread than previously understood. Some virologists believe that multiple strains in Wuhan as early as December could suggest that the virus had previously spread undetected. Imbarek, a lead investigator for WHO's mission to Wuhan, declined to draw conclusions on this in his CNN interview. I'm pretty sure they tried to press him for such conclusions, though. Of note, WHO scientists also say that it's extremely unlikely the virus came from a laboratory accident, debunking a conspiracy theory that had taken root in America in late 2020. What to watch? WHO scientists hope to return to Wuhan to continue investigations, Mbarek said. And the Biden administration, they have said that they have deep concerns about the WHO's COVID-19 probe. So the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in a statement on Saturday that the administration is concerned about the World Health Organization's probe into the origins of 2019. Sullivan said the administration fears the Chinese government may have intervened or altered the findings of the investigation. On the first day of his administration, Biden acted to return the U.S. to the WHO. The Trump administration had started the withdrawal in July 2020. WHO teams last month conducted the investigation, which is what we were just reading. The investigation had been agreed to last May, but it was delayed after Chinese officials withheld authorization regarding the scheduled visit. The delay, of course, drew rebuke, and the WHO team concluded that it's extremely unlikely the virus came from an accident, blah, 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 blah. All right, so this is what they're saying. The mission of the World Health Organization has never been more important, and we have deep respect for its experts and work they've been doing every day to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and advance global health and health security. And this is what Sullivan was saying. But re-engaging the WHO also means holding it to the highest standards. And at this critical moment, protecting the WHO's credibility is a paramount priority. We have deep concerns about the way in which the early findings of the COVID-19 investigation were communicated and questions about the process used to reach them. It is imperative that this report be independent, with expert findings free from intervention or alteration by the Chinese government. To better understand this pandemic and prepare for the next one, China must make available its data from the earliest days of the outbreak. So, fine, basically, let's hold them to a high standard. Let's not let the Chinese government dictate, what we're what the findings are, because I mean, basically, you know, they have a very, very strong hold on news and the narrative there in China, and it wouldn't surprise any of us, right? Like you wouldn't be surprised if China actually manipulated the findings, right? So the Biden administration is we need to make sure that we are holding them to that high standard and making sure that the information is not manipulated. Okay, fine. So it was always a long shot to actually see and know the origins of this thing. I mean, we're having some conversations with people. People say things like it was manufactured to impact 2020 and the election and all. Like we knew about this thing, this particular coronavirus in 2015. It was not new. We did an episode on it. Go back to politicalfreeagents.com. You can go check out the episode. We talked to a virologist. This stuff wasn't new, right? It had been around. This is why the Obama administration had pressed the Trump administration during the transition to be prepared. They had given them basically the blueprint, the book of how to handle this, because we knew, or let's say they knew, that something was coming and this was our biggest threat, right? And that's not even playing sides, being political, like legit. That's the facts of what happened, right? And call it whatever you want to call it. In 2019, this thing has started. That's why it's called COVID-19, right? And when I talk to people and they focus on the 2020 aspect, I'm like, this thing existed way before we started dealing with economic issues from the pandemic, right? So anyway, it was always going to be difficult to get this information. I just wanted to bring it up here so that as time comes, I'm sure there'll be more information coming out about this. We'll see. One thing I didn't necessarily care for is their statement about the reputation of the WHO. I'm like, protecting their reputation, protecting the WHO's credibility is a paramount priority. No, it's not. It's not a paramount priority. That is not. We're not worried about protecting their credibility. If they're shady, get the people out, call them out and get them out, right? Like the WHO needs to take care of their responsibilities. And if they're not doing that, then we need to deal with that accordingly. We don't need to protect their credibility. We need to ensure that they're being credible, but we don't need to protect credibility. There's a difference there. Maybe I'm being a little pedantic, but still, I didn't care for that one. One quick thing, Puerto Rico statehood. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. So this is Puerto Rican statehood supported by Governor Pedro Pierluisi. Has been a long-standing goal for some Democrats and championed by progressives as a way to grant the island self-determination. Puerto Rico has held 6 non-binding referendums on its status, including becoming a U.S. state since 1967. Residents recently voted in favor of statehood last November. Both of Pierluisi's predecessors, Wanda Vasquez and Ricardo Rossello, they also supported statehood. The big picture. Recent crises and natural disasters have boosted calls for statehood. Hurricane Maria, which was a Category 5, caused over 3,000 deaths. The island has held $72 billion in debt for years, but can't file for bankruptcies as cities or countries in the U.S. mainland can. Some voters in Puerto Rico's 2017 plebiscite expressed hope that statehood could allow the government to provide relief. This is how it works. Any change in Puerto Rico's status would require congressional approval, which has been a significant roadblock. The island's current governor, as well as the last two, have all been a part of the pro-statehood New Progressive Party. The other major political parties, the popular Democratic Party. I can't read today. What's Valentine's Day? Can't read. Advocates for keeping the status quo as a self-governing, unincorporated U.S. territory. Choices on past referendums have included statehood, the status quo, or independence from the U.S. Only 1.5% of voters chose independence in 2017. Last time it was asked. The 2020s referendum on statehood simply asked, should Puerto Rico be immediately admitted into the Union as a state? 52% said yes. Between the lines, Martha McSally told NBC News last year, oh, McSally, that if Puerto Rico gained statehood, Republicans would never get the Senate back again. Just gonna let that marinate for a minute. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, while campaigning in Kentucky in August, listed the island statehood as proof of Democrats' extreme agenda. The Republican Party of Puerto Rico supports statehood, and Puerto Rican statehood is a part of the Republican National Committee platform. The island's top officials are optimistic that they can build support for statehood in the House, but realize the bill would face an uphill battle against Republicans in the Senate, where Democrats are 50-50, with Vice President Kamala Harris, as the tie-breaking vote. A spokesperson for the committee, Raul, blah blah blah, they're going to hold a hearing early in this Congress, and Biden said that he would work with Puerto Rican officials who support each of the status options for the island's political future. Now, one small thing, right? So Puerto Rico, we've been providing support for to Puerto Rico for years. It's nothing new. It's not like we're doing something completely random by trying to support Puerto Rico in an official capacity. Okay? Now, I say all that to, just to preface, so that way it's clear that this is not some attempt to socialize help to Puerto Rico, because it's not. We've been doing this for years. Now, the telling part to me is the Republican Party. I'm sorry. But if your party is so bad that you cannot admit a new island of people into statehood without gaining some voters in that, if that's how bad your party is, you might want to look at your party. You might want to review. You might want to review your core tenets, right? Now, if this was admitting, you know what? I'm not even going to try to say it delicately. I'm just going to be straight up. If this was admitting a population on an island that was not so brown, they wouldn't have such a big problem, right? Like, I mean, Trump himself last year or a year before was saying that, he wanted people from these other countries, and all the countries he named were all predominantly white. He didn't want to help these other islands and things, that these S-hole countries, right? All of them were white countries, right? Like he said the quiet part out loud, right? And I'm not even trying to make this like a racial thing in the sense of like just outright racism, right? I'm talking about in terms of how the Republican Party views itself. They always have, and this is the same thing with DC. They have a problem with admitting DC or raising the level of DC out of just being this district to being a full-blown state. They have a problem because, well, DC is mostly black. How does DC, or excuse me, how do the majority of black people vote? Democrat. So they don't want DC because they're likely going to vote Democrat. They don't want Puerto Rico, who is basically, as of 2019, I looked it up real quick, 3.194 million people. They don't want Puerto Rico because they're afraid they're not gonna be able to gain any votes. What? Like this is 100%, 100% just pure politics. It's not about what's right. Politics doesn't matter about that. It doesn't care about that. It's not about what's right. Pure politics. What is best for our party? Not what's best for those people, right? That not what's best for them. Not what's best for the people of DC. Not what's best for them. 100%. It's about how do we retain power. And that is why you should be a political free agent. Ding, 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 ding. Here, let me hit the little. That's why you should be a political free agent. Because these parties are outright corrupt. Outright. And don't for 1 minute think that if there was a majority white island sitting off the corner of New Hampshire out there somewhere or wherever, don't think for a minute that the Democrats, that was heavily conservative, let me say. Don't for a minute think that the Democrats wouldn't try to fight too. That's the whole reason why gerrymandering exists. Gerrymandering exists because they're trying to like section off very finely with all these raggedy looking maps. They're trying to section off voters. So when they see a potential large population of voters coming in, like Puerto Rico, 3.19, 3.194 million. When they see that, they know without a shadow of a doubt that they can't control that and they could lose power because it's all about the power. That's what it boils down to. It's all about the power. All right. Let's move on. All right. Oh, one quick thing. One quick thing before we go on to the main topic. I wanted to bring light to this. Recent attacks spark renewed focus on anti-Asian violence. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but Daniel Day Kim had tweeted this. The number of hate crimes against Asian Americans continues to skyrocket despite our repeated pleas for help. The crimes are too often ignored and even excused. Remember Vincent Chin. Remember Vicha. That's it. I should have read this one first. Vicha Ratanapakdi. Ratanapakdi. Okay. And this from the picture here, if you look at the chyron, it says suspect charged for attacks on Asian Americans in California. California has a pretty large population of Asian Americans, at least in the Bay Area. Let me say the parts that I have frequented. This is something to keep an eye on. Don't let this slide away. Every single year, I go through the FBI stats. Once the new stats come out, they post them to FBI.gov. You can go look up the table, and it shows hate crimes. I still don't understand, but Jews are still receiving, a bunch of violence against them. Black people, Asians is on the rise, right? And I pay attention to these numbers so I can kind of see where things are shifting. And you don't hear a lot about Jewish hate crimes. Every now and then you'll catch wind of something very like prominent and large. Oh, and Muslims. But I don't get it. Like, why are you mad because somebody's Jewish? In 2020, 2019, whenever the new stats come out, they'll be for 2019. Why? Why are you mad because somebody's Asian? But the same people probably are defending the use of the Confederate flag or something stupid like that, right? Like, hypocrisy knows no bounds, man. And I'm not for any of the attacks. I'm not for any of the hate crimes. I don't roll with any of that. I'm going to support any marginalized group, no matter what they are, how they're made up, whatever the case may be. I'm going to support them, and I'm going to be against any violence against any group, to be honest, because it's all ignorance to me. All right, let's see. 25 minutes. Let's see if we can get this done in 25 minutes. The Senate acquits Trump. 57-43. Now, if you've been following the political free agents, you knew this was inevitable. When this first, actually, let me rant before we actually go through this. When this first popped up, and right after January 6th, that week, they were talking about impeaching Trump. I said outright, like, it was almost a foregone conclusion, right? The House was ran by the Democrats. He would be impeached, and he was. My problem was, by going through this, you would never have gotten the trial done before he left office. It was never going to happen. I stated it outright. This was largely going to end up being a waste of time. Of course, liberal friends, you know, they took a little alt with that, right? What do you mean? Just he gets to get away with it, doing this and blah, blah, blah. I mean, however you view it, it was a foregone conclusion that today was going to happen, or yesterday. The problem with it was that Mitch McConnell still controlled the Senate. He was just going to delay the process until after the election, or excuse me, after the inauguration. They could have, let's see, January 6th was what, Wednesday, right? If I recall correctly, let me double check. Yeah, it was Wednesday. They could have held impeachment hearings on the 7th or the 8th and impeached him that same day. They could have started the trial on the 11th, that Monday, or they could have worked on a Saturday. They did it yesterday. So they could have started it then, right? Immediately jumped into it. Even if, let's say, give them a week to get evidence and, some documentation or whatever the case may be. Let's just even say if they started it on the 13th, they would have had a whole 7 days to have this trial. Or if they started it on the 15th, they still could have had another 5 days to have the trial. It was possible to have the trial. They were never going to do it. It was clear. So then what did Mitch do? I came here on PFA and told you. It was a masterful move. Why was it masterful? Because what was the Senate trial about? The constitutionality of convicting a former president. That was it. That was the whole point. So even now, you hear people asking, and I keep having this discussion with one of my uncles. It's like, how far back do we go to impeach a past president? Do we go back to Gerald Ford? Do we go back to this, blah, blah? Look, man, the narrative is what wins. The impeachments are all 100% about public opinion. That's it. That's it. If they have the public opinion behind them, they'll do it. That's why Nixon resigned, because he saw the writing on the wall. It was inevitable. The Democrats' point was not to remove him from office at this point. It was the second tenet of the Constitution. It was to keep him from running for office again. Well, the Republicans just ensured that he can run for office again. Now, let's go back to the article. So the Senate failed to reach 2/3 majority necessary to convict former President Trump on charges of high crimes and misdemeanors, with a final vote of 57 to 43, cementing his acquittal. 7 Senate Republicans voted guilty, the most bipartisan margin in favor of conviction in history. The Republican senators are Richard Burr, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, and Pat Toomey. We'll talk about them a bit more in a bit. Here's what they're saying. This has been yet another phase of the greatest witch hunt in the history of our country. No president has ever gone through anything like it. And it continues because our opponents cannot forget that almost 75 million people, the highest number ever for a sitting president, who voted for us is just a few short months ago, Trump said in a statement. Blah, blah, blah. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, in a floor speech following his vote to acquit, unleashed his harshest criticism for the former president. Former President Trump's actions preceding the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty. Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day, no question about it, McConnell makes clear, despite voting to acquit the former president. You didn't hear this wrong. Mitch McConnell said he was practically and morally responsible for provoking the events. But he voted to acquit. You can't make this stuff up. Right? Like in that scene, in that setting, how is it that you believe he is responsible but you vote to acquit? It's possible because he's a Republican, and this would stain the Republicans, and it's post-presidency because you delayed it until after his presidency. Now, if you haven't watched PFA for long, I highly suggest go back, watch past episodes. I've stated Mitch McConnell is as smart of a political operative as there is. He knew exactly what he was doing. He voted to acquit because of the constitutionality of the moment. I mean, delay the trial till after the presidency, and then acquit because the trial is happening after his presidency. It doesn't in no way, shape, or form. Well, let me say there's no way that you don't see the political mastery of this. It doesn't matter what side you are on. The facts are there. He delayed and then acquitted because it was delayed. Let's look at a couple more quotes from Mitch. Let's see what else Mitch was talking about. This is all of these articles, by the way, if you listen to the audio, is from Axios. All right, so let's jump down. He did say that Trump didn't get away with anything yet because Trump could still be held liable in a criminal sense. All right, so let's jump down. Let's see, we already read that. Let's see, if President Trump were still in office, I would have carefully considered whether the House managers proved their specific charge. By the strict criminal standard, the president's speech probably was not incitement. However, in the context of impeachment, the Senate might have decided this was acceptable shorthand for the reckless actions that preceded the riot. But in this case, the question is moot because former President Trump is constitutionally not eligible for conviction. President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen, unless the statute of limitations has run out, basically. He hasn't gotten away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation, and former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one. I believe the Senate was right not to grab power the Constitution doesn't give us, but it does. And the Senate was right not to entertain some light speed sham process to try to outrun the loss of jurisdiction. Okay. Now, our founding fathers actually went through impeachment trials after somebody was out of office. Just look it up. It's all available to you. Thomas Jefferson was even involved. And the crazy thing with this is that they try to go through this whole political theater of we don't have the power to do this. Well, yes, you do. This is legitimately your power to try impeachment cases. But he went with the whole concept of it's a power grab the Constitution doesn't give us. Well, Mitch, if you would have had it prior to January 20th, you would have had that power. Again, masterful. Masterful. You can hate him all you want. But what he did was yet Mitch showing how much power Mitch actually has. Now, we're going to look at a couple things real quick. I'm going to show you a couple videos, and this is the main point of the impeachment because people keep asking, how did Trump do this, right? Why would Trump be held liable? And then we're going to actually, you know what? Let's talk about the senators first. Then we'll come back to those videos. So 7 Republicans who voted to convict Trump, just read their names recently: Burr, Cassidy, Collins, Murkowski, Romney, Sass, and Toomey. I'm not going to read their quotes, right? But this article is here on Axios, right? And it largely boils down to, like, as Toomey said, he was one of them that voted for Trump, but after seeing what happened, he couldn't go that route anymore. Okay, now I want you to remember these names because they are about to be attacked viciously for voting against Trump because the party has largely gone Trump. And if you're not supporting Trump, then you're a rhino, right? Republican in name only, which is stupid, completely dumb, but such is politics. So keep an eye on those names because you can guarantee it's going to come up come midterms, if any of them are up, or come the next election in 4 years, the next big election, presidential election, if they come up then. Whenever they come up, you're going to hear about this vote again. Now, why was Trump responsible? Because people keep asking and wondering why I believe Trump is responsible. Now, simple question. January 5th, we had the election. We knew Biden was going to win. I don't know what, 20th, whatever. I don't know. So let's say the moment we know Biden has won Pennsylvania, we knew it was a wrap at that point. So once we know that, and they start going through challenges, right? Trump hadn't conceded, okay? All right. Is what it is. Normally, once you've lost the states, you concede. Didn't concede. All right, cool. We got the electorals that are happening on the 15th of December, I believe it was. Once the electors have certified the vote, that means all of the states, all of the votes have been tallied. We've gone through recounts, lawsuits. We've looked at all the evidence of potential fraud, all of that stuff. The courts have seen it. The Supreme Courts have seen it. We've gone through all of this. Multiple recounts in multiple states. Every single elector went with the will of the people and certified the votes. At that point, it was a wrap. There was nothing. I came on here and told you there was nothing Trump could do. It's over. January 6th, when they were voting, there was nothing. That's a roll call sort of thing. You come up there and you say this state has these votes and blah, blah, blah. The states could have sent multiple sets of electoral votes. They didn't. They sent one, the one that was certified. All of these things, it was over. mid-January, when the electors have voted. Okay. If Trump concedes at that point, we don't know 100%, but there is no say or stop the steal rally on January the 6th. Right? There's no need for it. He's conceded. It's over. There is no stop the steal. Okay? It's over. Simple case. If Trump concedes, there is no insurrection. Right? Okay. Now, he didn't concede. January 6th comes up. We have speakers that come up. Here's Rudy Giuliani.
Now, if they ran such a clean election, why wouldn't they make all the machines available immediately? If they ran such a clean election, they'd have you come in and look at the paper ballots. Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat. I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality there.
Now, maybe Rudy's idea of combat is legal. Maybe that's what he means. But you're speaking to a crowd of thousands of people who are there, incensed and angry and ready to battle because, how do we know? Well, they built a galley. They have all these weapons with them. They're dressed in black clad, right? Like the FBI had already warned that there was potential for violence there, right? Like, okay. All right. So circumstantial. Let's go with that, right? Circumstantial. And I didn't even pull up the clip. I'm not going to go to it. But Don Jr. I should have pulled it up. Ran out of time, but I should have pulled it up. Don Jr. Same kind of physical statements, right? About, I'm going to be, in your backyard, stuff like that. You could find a reason to say that wasn't necessarily calling for violence. But Mo Brooks.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass. Now, our ancestors sacrificed their blood, their sweat, their tears, their fortunes, and sometimes their lives to give us, their descendants, an America that is the greatest nation in world history. So I have a question for you. Are you willing to do the same?
Our ancestors sacrificed blood. Are you willing to do the same? The speeches of the day, of the rally, and I didn't go through an exhaustive list. The speeches of the day, they were inciting violence. Multiple of them. There were at least 3. And the people who actually were there that were being violent were telling and yelling at the cops. Mind you, it's great for me because I love to see the hypocrites have to own up to the fact that Trumpers were in there calling cops pigs, talking about killing cops and how trash they were and all this sort of stuff. The whole BLM fry 'em like bacon. Well, that one's kind of done now, right? Right? Like, we can let that one go because now we got Trumpers pretty much doing the same thing, but actively beating cops with the American flag, right? Don't kneel, but we can beat you. I'm sorry. But all of this happened because Trump, for 3 months, told his supporters that the election was stolen, told them to fight over and over and over and over again, told them on the day of the rally. The Democrat impeachment managers did a great job of putting Trump's words with the timeline. And when Trump is telling me you have to fight or you're not going to have a country and all these sort of things, people were starting to move to the Capitol. He started telling we're going down to the Capitol. People were entering the Capitol. People started breaking down barriers, things like that. Now, the one thing that I think the Democrats failed to do here, they started cutting video. I don't like that. I do not like cutting video. So I always say, go catch the whole thing. Even with the videos I just showed, go watch the whole speech. Watch all of it. Watch all of Trump's speech. The problem that they had was Trump on that day stated, mind you, this was after they already started attacking the Capitol. But they should have faced that. They should have stated it. They should have shown it when Trump said, we're going to march down to the Capitol and we're going to peacefully protest the still to let our voices be heard, basically. The Democrats failed by not showing that. They should have shown it and addressed it within the timeline and the context of everything else that was happening. Because by the time he said that, the Capitol was breached. It was already breached. But when they didn't, and I didn't catch the final few days, but when they didn't, what happened was the Trump team came up and they showed what the Democrats showed, and then on side of it they showed the continued part. So they showed where it was going, where the Democrats played, where they stopped, and then they said this was the rest. They shot themselves in the foot. He wasn't gonna be convicted anyway, in my opinion. But they gave way to potential narrative, and I thought that was a failure point, right? But there's no way around the fact that Trump pushed and pushed and pushed the narrative that the election was being stolen, that the country was being stolen, that the Democrats were trying to take the country over and they were going to create some dystopian future. The stock market was going to crash. You are being, basically all this victimhood stuff, which none of it's happened right so far. He said, if the Democrats win, the stock market's going to crash. There go your 401ks. Well, the stock market's actually up, all-time highs. But he pushed this narrative. He pushed it over and 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 over. And now we're left with old Captain Orange vowing a comeback. Former President Trump thanked his defense team and supporters in the Senate who voted to acquit him on Saturday and promised that his movement to make America great again has only just begun. Trump comments came in a statement issued moments after his second acquittal. He had closely watched the trial from Mar-a-Lago with his former social media manager, Dan Scavino, and other advisors. What he's saying: I always have and always will be a champion for the unwavering rule of law. We all know that's a lie, right? He stiffed contractors. He skirted the rule of law his whole presidency. We know that's a lie, right? I don't have to run all that down for you, right? Okay. He's been a champion for the unwavering rule of law, the heroes of law enforcement, and the right of Americans to peacefully and honorably debate the issues of the day without malice and without hate. Come on. I almost want to stop reading this, but I'm going to go ahead and read this because I'm a completionist. It is a sad commentary on our times that one political party in America is given a free pass to denigrate the rule of law, defame law enforcement, cheer mobs, excuse rioters, and transform justice into a tool of political vengeance and persecute, blacklist, cancel, and suppress all people and viewpoints with whom or which they disagree. Now, we know Trump didn't write this, right? Like, we know that, right? There's too many big words here. This has been yet another phase of the greatest witch hunt in history. In the history of our country, no president has ever gone through anything like it. And it continues because our opponents cannot forget the almost 75 million. We read this earlier. Our historic, patriotic, and beautiful movement to make America great again has only just begun. In the months ahead, I have much to share with you, and I look forward to continue our incredible journey together to achieve American greatness for all of our people. There's never been anything like it. We remain one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God, and it's our responsibility to preserve this magnificent inheritance for our children and for generations of Americans to come. Now, the good, clear hypocrisy of this is that he goes in and says, we remain one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. No, you just got through saying how it's this one versus the other, right? The whole idea of this cancel culture being new. What do you think hanging people was? You drank out of a whites only fountain. If that's not the ultimate cancel culture, what is? Right? Like, this idea that cancel culture is something new is stupid. It's not new. It's not new. You're just not benefiting from it anymore. That's all it boils down to. You're not the beneficiary of this cancel culture that you are so apt to bring up constantly. So now all of a sudden, oh, I'm a victim. I'm being canceled. Nah, man, you are the worst president in our history. The worst. If the culmination of your first presidency was January 6th, you made America worse, bro. It's worse. There's no way, shape, or form that you can convince anybody without a tight red hat around their hat, sucking out all the thinking power. There's no way that you can convince anyone else that you are a potential great choice for America a second time. But this is politics. So we shall see what happens with Trump on the way out. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if he's going to run again or if he's going to try to get somebody else to run again and it's under his whole team or something. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But rest assured, partisanship is going to win the day, as it usually does. Partisanship saved Trump, not the rule of law. It didn't. Partisanship did. Because if you, dear Trump supporter watching this, gritting your teeth because I'm not fawning over Trump, if you throw a rally, a party, a get-together, and then people start ransacking, destroying property, doing all those sort of things, you will meet the foot of the law because you organized it. And especially if you helped incense the party goers or the rally visitors or whatever. If you had people up there and you were allowing them to spew hateful things and say we need to sacrifice our blood, you would be found guilty of your involvement. So no, he doesn't want the rule of law. Because if the rule of law was really at play, he would have lost in this trial. We would never see him in politics again. And all things will be right in the world. Just kidding. No, they wouldn't. We're the political free agents. Partisanship is always going to be here as long as we allow this two-party system. So you need to exit the system. It's the only way around it. Exit the two-party system. Do not allow this two-party system to make you think that this is the way that things are supposed to work, because they're not. They're not supposed to work this way. Exit the system. Join the Free Agent Nation. Hit us up at politicalfreeagents.com. You can also find us on social media at PFA Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Catch us live every Sunday, 2 p.m. and Tuesday at 7 p.m. And also, Started a new podcast on technology. So you can find the Catapulting podcast coming to a podcast player near you. We haven't published the first episode, but we have recorded it and I really enjoyed it. So check it out. Go to catapult.co, and we'll have that posted here soon. We'll catch you on the flip side. We're PFA. We're out.